People of France, fellow citizens in France, mainland France, and in the overseas territories. It is now the fall of 2021, and it is an opportunity for me to speak to you and to respond to concerns that you have in relation to the current health, social, and economic crisis and geopolitical crisis that we are facing. For some 2 years now, we have been dealing with an unheard of pandemic. We looked after each other and made collective decisions that were essential to protect each other and ourselves as a nation. Those decisions were based on scientific data, and we always took those decisions to protect ourselves and to act in a manner that was proportional to the circumstances. Our decisions were made to ensure that we could protect ourselves and each other, and this is why we took a number of decisions, predominantly to lock down on 2 occasions, in spring and then in autumn 2020. We then brought in curfew that were adapted to each local community. Ever since the beginning of 2021, we have been able to roll out vaccines. We were first able to purchase and then produce them. The European Union produced some 2 billion doses this year. That's more than any other global power. As for France, ever since the first vaccine was rolled out in December, we have been able to vaccinate more than 100,000 doses in just 10 months. And with those rates, this makes us one of the most protected countries in the world. With our health passes and the strategies that we have been implementing ever since June, we have been able to bring the epidemic into check. And when we take stock of the situation, I think of all those people who unfortunately passed due to COVID, and my thoughts go out to their families. I would like to thank all of the health professionals, all those people who work in not-for-profit organizations who helped to mobilize our efforts. Yet the pandemic is still not over. There are still some tens of thousands of French citizens who are still affected by long-term COVID effects. They still haven't found the taste or sense of smell. They are often still facing some mental side effects, and they are still receiving medical care for these long-term symptoms. And we will have to continue living with the virus and the various variants until the larger section of the global population can be vaccinated. And this is why ever since the beginning of the pandemic, France committed to bringing out a number of doses for the poorest and developing nations of the world. We have shown international solidarity and will continue to do so. The fight is not over, as the World Health Organization has said that there is another wave on the horizon. In Germany, some 30,000 new cases are still being recorded every day. In the United Kingdom, the same can be said. Our incidence rate has been on the rise, and the number of new hospitalizations in France is also on the rise, and it is raising an alarm. For the overseas territories where vaccination rates are still insufficient, we still see that people are continuing to suffer. And I would like to thank international solidarity for everything that has been able to do ever since the beginning of this crisis. And all of this calls on us to remain vigilant and calls on us to act. We have done the utmost to protect ourselves, and because of that, we're going to be able to continue to keep the situation under check, and we'll be able to do so as long as everyone plays their fair share. And this is why I send an appeal out to all of those of you, the 6 million who are still unvaccinated. Please, vaccinate yourselves, to protect yourselves and to protect all those others. Remember, anyone who is vaccinated has 11 times less chance of going to hospital should they fall ill to COVID. There are millions of people around the world who are already vaccinated, and we already have insight into the effects that it may or may not have. When you are vaccinated, you will be able to have a health pass, and with that you will be able to enter into cafes, restaurants, social venues, without having to have a PCR test. Because as a citizen of France, it requires us to be responsible in our actions and show solidarity. The most vulnerable people in the face of this crisis are the elderly, those people who are obese, who have cardiovascular diseases, respiratory disease, or severe cases of diabetes. All studies show that 6 months after the vaccine, the level of immunity drops off, and the chances of contracting a serious form of the disease rise. The only way to reduce that chance is to take a booster shot. Ever since the beginning of summer, we have been rolling out booster shot campaigns for those above 65 and the most fragilized, and most vulnerable. If you were vaccinated over more than 6 months ago, I call on you to take out an appointment now, either within a vaccination center or with your local general practitioner, to seek a booster shot. As of December, you will need to show proof that you have had a booster shot, enabled to prolong your health pass. Because the protection that the vaccine gives you diminishes over time. Some 80% of people in resuscitation wards are over the age of 50, which is why a booster shot is required and in fact recommended for all those people above the age of 50. In the coming days, we will issue guidance to be followed for all those people who wish to seek out that second booster shot, as was done with the first round of vaccinations. But while the vaccine is efficient, it is not the only way to protect ourselves, which is why in the coming months we need to ramp up our caution levels. We need to continue applying the regulations and guidance that is still in effect. Wearing a mask in schools will be maintained. Social distancing measures, general protection measures will continue to be in effect. And these measures also help to protect against other diseases. We will need to continue carrying out checks for the health pass. For those people entering into public buildings or areas of large access will also be continued. Airports, train stations and the like. Also, other decisions will be made at a local level as the situation evolves. So we have vaccinations, the health pass, and we also have the protective measures. When these forces are combined, we will be able to continue to keep this epidemic in check. And because France focused on treatment in the very early stages, we have been able to now develop a new weapon against this virus. At the end of the year, we will have the first truly effective treatment, medical treatment, against the most serious cases of COVID. Throughout this entire period, France has always sought to protect each and every one of us, be it in terms of education or socio-economic matters. For the youngest people, we've been able to keep schools open. We have provided medical and financial assistance for young people so they can have access to meals, accommodation. And we were able to protect some 1.5 million citizens from falling into poverty. We have helped artists, musicians with financial assistance, government-backed loans, and we will continue to adapt these measures, this assistance, according to people's needs. And this is why we have government-backed loans which will be continued through to June 2022. We've also provided care to health workers who were on the front line throughout this crisis and who are exhausted. And we understand that. 500 medical institutions will be renovated with some 19 billion euros of investment across France. These measures, amongst many others, will be applied. We will increase the levels of training for medical staff and nurses. Never before have we invested so much in the health sector. It is essential now, and it has been essential for the past 10 years, because for the past few decades, the health sector has been so severely underfunded. And this has become starkly shown in today's light. With the recovery package that was voted through, thanks to European support, we have been able to resist the crisis, but also bounce back even stronger today. Our growth is above 6%. France is leading the major European economies. Unemployment is at its lowest level for the past 15 years. And in fact, we are one of the only countries in the world where purchasing power has grown. And on average, poverty has not increased. All of this has been possible while keeping deficit in check. It is under 5% of GDP this year. All of this is because of the choices that we made together. And today, once again, we need to make new choices to keep destiny within our own hands, as individuals, but also as a nation. Because yes, the world is an accelerating world, so decisions must be taken in light of that. We still need to consolidate our economy in terms of supply chains, in terms of financing. Because I know that many of you are affected by the increasing rarity of certain primary resources and commodities. And bit by bit, as a whole, we are finding ways to ensure that each French citizen can, through their work, build themselves their own life, see their own projects come to fruition. And for those people working in hospitality, in construction, tradesmen and women, all small business owners say that they struggle to hire new people. When 3 million people are still unemployed in France, it seems to strike an unusual chord. And therefore, we need to tackle this issue across all fronts. For the past 4 years, people now earn better for the work that they do. Increase of minimum wages, with the changes in terms of tax when it comes to tips. So all of this work that we have done. For the lowest income earners, they now have 70 euros more in terms of purchasing power than before. We need to continue to reform the tax system so that we can continue to provide tax benefits for those people who need it. Since 2017, so much has been done to provide training and skills for those people who are seeking jobs. For the younger generations, we have put in considerable efforts, for example, with in-place working agreements. And we also have the One Youth, One Solution program that we brought into effect. So that for every person who needs it, every young person who needs this, they will either have the training or education necessary, or even a job, which means that we have youth unemployment at the lowest levels ever. In an extension of what I announced in July, we have a new program that will come into effect 1st of March next year. It will be our youth assistance program, because we will open up access to new programs. For anyone under the age of 26, they would be able to have government subsidies up to 500 euros, so that they can sign up to training programs or education that they so desperately need. For people to earn a decent wage, for people to have a decent job, We are carrying out work currently to reform our unemployment insurance system. For the past month now, rules have been changed for people going back to work. And as of the 1st of December this year, a new milestone will be overcome. People will have to work at least 6 months over the past 2 years to be able to have access to unemployment benefits, whereas currently it stands, people have access to those rights after only 4 months of non-stop work. There are hundreds of thousands of job offers out there that are still unfulfilled, and they will continue to be filled with this new system. For those people who don't attend an interview, they will no longer have access to those rights. Moreover, we have worked on reforming the retirement system. Since the 12th of July, it was announced. We heard from unions, we heard from professional organizations that our efforts need to be focused on recovery so that we can pull our country through these tough times. And because of that, we can now focus on these new programs. We need to inequalities inequalities in the retirement system, and that is still a fact that has not changed. Specific reform for farmers and people in the agricultural sector will come into effect. We also need to ensure that we can maintain pensions for the retired population, yet still find an economy that is sound for the younger generation. So for that, we need to make decisions that need to be fueled by public debate, but brought into effect through simple measures. We need to go more towards a fairer system without these special regimes, without a split between public and private insurance systems. We need to find a system where no pension will be under 1,000 euros. We need to have systems so people can retire progressively. They can phase into retirement. We need to find ways to enable people, if they wish to work beyond the retirement age, to do so. This retirement needs to not be seen as something that is forced upon people, a cause of concern and anxiety, but something as a marker of hope. Work in our nation is our guiding compass. It is our North Star. It is what helps us continue to grow our purchasing power. It is what means that we can continue to be close with our loved ones while still bringing our own personal projects to fruition. But with everyone working, what means that us as a nation, we can stay independent and make our own decisions. It is through more work, that we will be able to protect our social model, the retirement system, medical care, social security, universal inclusion at school, further measures for people living with disabilities. It is thanks to our system that people can work from home, that people can receive medical care at home. We actually created a new branch of the social security system, which will come into effect in the coming months. And as of the 1st of January, healthcare professionals and people who provide home assistance will have an increase in their pay, in their wages. And despite the pandemic, we want to create a social security system for all that will be financed through increased levels of work from all, and it is in doing so that our state will become more sure-footed. As we saw since 2017, we have recruited and employed more gendarmes. We have increased the justice budget. And the results are there. We have seen a drop of 25% of the number of break-in entries. We have seen so many more people being arrested for drugs trafficking. While we have that result, while we have that performance, there is still much more that yet to be done. We need to keep tackling violence, gender violence, violence against women, protect the younger generations. And therefore, we will have a budgetary law for national security, which is still being tested and will analyzed and will put to vote in 2022 to provide more assistance to our law enforcement agencies. As of spring, we will have more measures to ensure that the justice sector will have greater means and for justice to be served where justice is needed. Day in, day out, we are facing the fallout from the current crisis, the increases in fuel, increases in prices in generally speaking. And this is why the government has put a stop on increasing gas prices, so that those people who earn less than 2,000 euros a month will have a 200 euro inflation bonus. But if we can focus on energy as being a sovereign right and not depend on others, therefore any means of reducing our energy consumption and by focusing on a more carbon-free energy system is in our favor. And this is why, in France, we will guarantee electricity supply for our own country. This is why we want to reach carbon neutrality and net zero carbon neutrality by 2050. So in the next 10 years, we will construct new nuclear reactors in France, while continuing to develop renewable energies. Thanks to these investments, we will live up to commitments that we have made. COP26 has come to an end in Glasgow, and that came as a strong message to France. It's something that we can all see and feel. As of now, we are preparing for the challenge of the future. Society is going through very deep change. The pandemic highlighted our weaknesses. A virus that brought the world to its feet, brought the world to its knees, and which is why we saw that we had to suddenly increase production of masks around the world. And what we saw is that in just the face of a few days, months, the entire world could change. And yet the major issues from pre-crisis are still here. Demographic change, aging population, increasing inequality. They are still there. And in such a short span of time, we had to come up with such fundamental decisions to be able to tackle all of those issues, to be able to take our destiny back in our hands. And for that, we need strong investment, strong levels of investment from the government, from France's government, but also from European level. And that's why by 2030 we will have 30 billion euros over 5 years to invest in key sectors, future-forward industries like industry, electric vehicles, zero-carbon aeroplanes, health, the space industry, or even maritime industry. We have to continue to invest in our younger generations for these future industries so that in France we will have production of main components and technology, fundamental technology, such as semiconductors, robotics, anything to do with the cyber industry will be French-made. We need technology that will be the heart of the future economy, future jobs, future lives. We need for them not to come from the United States or from China, but to also come from France and Europe. Some would say that this is impossible. I, however, would say it's not. It is very much in the realm of possibilities for us, because if with a clear mind we say that today we will continue with reform, we will continue to transform, and we will continue to invest in our society. Yes, France is a great power, and we will continue to be so in terms of education, investment, technology, agriculture, while continuing to reach our targets in terms of the environment, in terms of biodiversity. As long as we lift the brakes that are in our way, we will be able to achieve our goals. But France is strong when it's with others, not when it's alone. We see the shock of continents at play, and when France is part of Europe, shows solidarity towards Europe, towards our European neighbours, we will be able to have a true hitting power. And this is why, at a European level, our interests are shared. And when we see American, Russian, Chinese powers conflicting at loggerheads with each other, we, as France, within that context, we will take over presidency of the European Union. And it is our role to deal with these global issues, because it is our opportunity to write the history books of the future with Europe. Because our partners, they're not foreigners. They are citizens of this very continent who are faced with the same issues that we face. And this is why in the coming months, we will tackle issues that are our issues. We will protect our foreign borders. Together, we will continue to co-construct a strong relationship, a growth-driven relationship with African nations. We will continue together to build the future giants of the digital world. We will continue to find solutions to reduce CO2 emissions. We will continue to win back industrial, technological sovereignty. This new model based on investment and growth that I believe in is one for France and Europe. And this is one I will champion on your behalf when France takes on the presidency of the European Union. Fellow citizens, together over these past few months, we have faced an unprecedented crisis. The pandemic, the fallout of the pandemic, terrorism, geopolitical crises, just to name a few of the issues that we have dealt with. And I have covered here tonight everything that we have done and everything we will do in the coming months. But for these past few months, we have shown unity. We have shown pride in what we represent, in our human values. And I do hear that there is still concern, uncertainty, doubt. I have heard cries of rage. And yes, times are tough. For many, it's a source of great concern. But let's take this opportunity to see what we have done over these past 6 months when we work together, when we work and stand united. We have done the unimaginable. And so it is here tonight that I say to you, do not fear. Believe in us. Believe in France. Believe in France that stays true to itself, true to its own history, its culture, its own language, its secular society, all that makes it whole. A France that stands against these outward powers, against dogma, against backwards thinking, against the return of nationalist ideology. France that is made strong because it believes in a future. Because France believes in these universal ideals. Believe in it because we deserve it. Long live the French Republic, long live France.